Hey, folks. Welcome to the Pop Culture Squadcast Live. Glad to see you guys here tonight. We are a little bit different tonight. Mike can't make it, so it's just going to be me running the show. We have two guests who are going to be here shortly. We're going to have a great conversation with Tim Seeley and Mitch Gerads. It's Tim's returning to the show, which we're so happy about, and it'll be Mitch's first time on the show. So we'll get into that. How's everybody doing? It's December. We are well into holiday shopping season. I know we're all dealing with that. I want to run through before we get our guests in. I have a couple of things I want to run through, and I appreciate you guys being here and sticking with me on my own. So throw some comments in there if you want. This past weekend, we were at GalaxyCon Richmond, my wife Sherry and I, and we ran the Heroes Initiative booth there. Was a terrific time. It was a great show. GalaxyCon folks put on a terrific show all the time. And we were running the Hero Initiative booth, so it was really great to really connect with people and spend a lot of time really focusing on the cause. For those who don't know, Hero Initiative is an organization that raises money for creators in and for people who need help with financial problems related to health conditions or housing issues. They do an excellent job, and we were able to talk to people and really connect, and we got a decent amount of donations for the cause, and that was really nice, especially at this time of year. We're looking at our schedule for next year and what's going on. One of the things I kind of wanted to talk about and go through really quickly is some of the new number ones that are out this week. Oh yeah, I'm getting some comments here. One of the things we do have, I want to remind people that I put this in the chat last week, and I'll put it in the chat before the end of the show. But there's a new 100 project for Hero Initiative that is a collection of sketch covers that are put together. They're currently being auctioned off, the actual sketch covers, but the collected book is going on sale on December 18th. You can get it through the link through heroinitiative.org. And we were able to sell some of those this weekend because we had advanced copies of them. Well, they're actually real copies. We just had them before they were on sale. And boy, it really went really well. We sold a decent amount of them, both the hardcover and softcover. We got some of the creators who were at the show to sign copies, and we made a little bit of extra money on that, which was terrific for the organization. It's important for everybody to remember that comic book creators, the people who make these things, are freelancers. They don't get paid a salary. They don't have benefits that are paid by their employers. They're brilliant artists in every sense, in every discipline, and yet they get paid by the work that they do, and they got to figure it out on their own afterwards. And a lot of times it's hard to do that, and sometimes things are unforeseen, and people need help. So we like to do what we can to help out, and we encourage everybody to do the same. All right. I want to talk about some new number ones. It is that time of the show. Give me a second here, and I'm going to get up some of these things we were talking about. It's a pretty big week. There's a lot of new stuff coming out. We're in a situation where there's a bunch of a bunch of books that are either one shots or singles, but I just want to kind of run through these real quick, and then we're going to get I know Tim's in the green room, so we're going to get him in as quick as we can, because I'm all by myself, and I appreciate you guys watching and being here. Batman Dark Patterns comes out this week by Dan Waters and Hayden Sherman, and Tree Farrell on colors. That's a great team of creators. This seems like a really interesting detective story. I don't know what the length of it is, but I am certainly looking forward to it. There's a couple of Distillery books coming out. I think Distillery has 3 books that come out this week. The City Beneath Your Feet issue 1 is coming out this week. by James Tynan and Elsa Chatrier and Jordi Belair and Aditi Bidikar, and that's a great team. There's Doll Parts comes out this week. These are all new number ones. There's another entry in the World of Minor Threats, which Tim is a contributor to. We're going to get that. The Brood comes out, which this is a great universe that I'm super excited to continue to see going. Marvel has a new series, Infinity Watch by Derek Landry. This is a book I'm looking forward to. Laura Kinney Wolverine by Erica Schultz. And Billy Vosso and Rosenberg. I am a big fan of Laura Kinney, so looking forward to that. Again, here is another distillery book, Warm Fusion by Scott Hoffman, Alberto Ponticelli, Lee Lowridge, and Steve Wands. Christos Gage and Eric Gapster are doing this Marvel Animation preview of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. I guess there's a show coming out. I'm not 100% up on this, but I guess there's a show coming out called Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and this looks great. I'm excited for it. We're getting into the special editions. There is a collected edition of Billy 99, and I had a whole thing we were going to get into Tim's sale. I'll save it for another time when Mike's back. But Billy 99 collection is going to be available at shops this week. I'm fairly certain, and that is definitely something people would want to check out. I'm going to back off of this because my guests are here, and I want to get to them because they're a lot more interesting than me. I've been wanting to do this show for literally over a year now because I first found out about their collaboration at GalaxyCon Columbus last year, which was a year ago, and I said as soon as it becomes available, we're going to talk about it. And so at New York Comic Con, it was announced that Tim Seeley and Mitch Gerads are working on a Vigilante book. Is set in the Peacemaker television show universe, sort of ish. We're going to get into that. But I'm really excited to have them on. I'm going to bring them in one at a time. And Tim's been on the show, so we're going to bring him in first. I had to do a little re-update of his intro, but let's welcome in Tim Seeley. Hey Tim, how are you?
What's up? How you doing, Bob? Good to see you.
Good. I want to bring in Mitch real quick, but I do want to say it was. I had a conversation. I think it was with my local comic shop guy last week, and I told him I think you told somebody you were going to be on the show, and I think it was him. He said, "Oh, well, ask him what he's going to be doing after Local Man." And I'm like, he's like the busiest guy in comics. He is working hard. He's got his fingers in everything, all over the place. And that preview just shows you got like a whole bunch of stuff coming.
Yeah,
we'll get into a lot of that. How was the trip up to Canada for the set of Revival?
it was amazing. It was so weird to like go see people, hundreds of people running around to execute something that you typed, in this very spot on this very keyboard, just as like a line, and you're like, and then the truck tipped over, and then a whole bunch of people have to like get a crane and lift a truck and tip it over. So, yeah, it was weird. And then just hanging out with the girls, fascinating, because they're playing two characters that Mike and I made up, and yeah, so weird. Such a weird situation, but great. But I wasn't prepared mentally, I think, to take it in.
Good. We're gonna get back into that. I want to bring in Mitch, and let's talk about Vigilante first. So let's bring in Mitch. Not that.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Hey, Bob.
Cheers to everyone.
Hey, Tim.
This is in honor of Paul. You know,
Both have the same rack right there, Mitch. Look at
I
our
know. It's very nice
Because
rack.
we're cool.
You guys have really nice racks, I gotta say.
I do what I always do when Mitch shows up, and I'm gonna pop a beer. That's what
Love it.
there we go.
So now you get to see this is my
Nice.
every day, every time I'm on the show, people are looking at your art all the time.
Love it.
We're gonna get to a bunch of stuff tonight, guys. Thanks again for doing this. Let's talk about Vigilante first. So
Heard of it.
what is the story? Can you guys lay out how this worked out?
The plot or the how did this come together?
Oh, I'll take both. Absolutely.
Well, the how to come together was at some point when after I saw the TV show Peacemaker, like by the third episode, I was like, I was born to write weird Jeffrey Dahmer Vigilante. So I emailed Katie.
I won't argue with you.
Yeah, I emailed Katie Kubert at DC and just said, I don't know if it's possible, but we should do a Vigilante comic like the Vigilante that's in the show, but it can just be like we just kind of ignore. You know, I didn't know how that would work with licensing and the DCU and all that stuff. So, but I said, I don't know if that's possible, but I want to do it. And she said, that'd be great. And then she went on medical leave and she was maternal leave. She was gone for like a year. And this project was not mentioned again until she came back. And all of a sudden she said, yep, it's on. I was like, what? And and then she said, and just so you know, I got Mitch to draw. I was like, wait, what? So, and then we've been working on it, I think, for like a year and a half, Mitch. Is that about right?
Yeah, which is terrifying.
But we've been working on it for a long time, and the way it's set up is that it's basically a twofer. It's a double feature. It's got a story by Rex Hogel about Eagly, and then our story about Vigilante, and they are tied together, but they're separate creative teams doing their own thing with the characters from the TV show.
And is it 5 issues? Is that right?
Yeah.
I think that's cool. I mean, it's very interesting how that worked together. Mitch, how did you get approached then to come?
I got an
Katie
email.
just said you're working with Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I got an email from Katie asking if I would be interested. And that's pretty much it. Like, it was just, are you interested? And then, but she didn't mention anyone involved. And, you know, I was pretty dead set on it's going to be the Tom and Mitch show until I die. But then when I got the offer for Vigilante, I was like, ooh, I'm pretty interested. And I wrote her back and she's like, okay, good. Because, well, something just happened with my volume. Because Tim and James Gunn are going to work on it with you. And I was like, what? Apparently, James, I mean, you know, maybe Katie's lying just to butter me up, but she said that James specifically requested me because he's such a big fan of the Strange Adventures book.
That's fair.
He definitely asked you. That is 100% true. That's not editorial butter.
I'll take it either way.
Yeah, he definitely asked for you.
That's awesome. That's great. I mean, I love to hear stories like that coming together. So what can you tell us about what's gonna happen in the story? And I think I have some of the stuff to pop in here while you're talking about it.
Well, the basic plot that we've set up here is that Peacemaker disappears, and Vigilante, because he's his best friend, goes on a hunt to find out what happened to him. And he believes that there is a robotic supervillain called the Controller, who is behind the disappearance of Peacemaker. But he's insane, and he's going to basically make up Vigilante. He's going to make up all the reasons to go after all kinds of people based on whatever he thinks the Controller is. So it's he believes the Controller has kidnapped Peacemaker. He will stop at nothing to get Peacemaker back from a character who may or may not exist. So that's basically our setup for this. Yeah.
And I've told Tim this a million times too, but like reading these scripts, like it feels like the show. It doesn't feel like a comic book adaptation, like it feels like this could have been like an episode they shot.
Like a really weird episode of the show. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, and I feel like the voice on this was, that's why I emailed Katie right away when I saw it. I was like, this is what I do. Like a insane, terrible person who's funny doing horrible things is what I do. And the fact that it's sort of, you get to do a remake of DC Universe stuff, but put a spin on it. And my particular opinion on the Vigilante has always been that I kind of think he's very problematic as a character. That it's essentially Bernie Getz, the superhero, and that's definitely something that I was like, when James came up with a way to make that character something I understood, I was like, I have to do that with it, you know. And then making it something that I think, you know, Mitch stylistically is a design-based photorealistic artist. And not in the way that he does things photorealistically because they're designed first. But in this case, he gets to use, you know, images of familiar places and all this sort of stuff from a TV show, but then do his Mitch thing on it. So, you know, it doesn't look like a fumetti. It doesn't look like an adaptation. It looks like someone doing something new because they're so well matched with, you know, this idea. So I think we're doing something that plays to our strengths.
It's been a real cool challenge too, because I've gone through and watched, you know, that season of Peacemaker now like 20 times. Because like I realized there's this opportunity with my style and how it's realistic, and there's all these, like Tim said, there's already building blocks there I can use. So it's been this real cool opportunity to go in and see like the mannerisms and all these things that I can add to all these characters, like things you don't catch when you're just watching it like a normal person, not a freak like me. When you're watching it and you realize like he's always got his chin up in the air when he's talking. His head's always up. And I'm like, all right, so I'll make sure I do that. So it's been fun doing like all sorts of weird things like that.
That's really cool.
Is totally something, yeah. Like I think if I, you know, work with a comic book artist who, you know, is just drawing an adaptation, you know, they're going to do like a design and they're going to try to like do their style on it. And Mitch is doing like, this is the Peacemaker TV show through the filter of what you expect color-wise from Mitch and what you expect storytelling-wise. And then it also gave us tons of opportunities to do weird storytelling stuff. Like the one you showed where there's the fight scene where Mitch kind of got to do this like,
yes,
you know, kind of choreographed, almost kind of dance fight scene and just like stuff that there's a couple things in here. Like the last issue we do sort of, we can mess around with format in a way that they can't do on the TV show, but that, you know, normally see in a comic either. We're kind of getting to do sort of a combination.
Yeah. It looks gorgeous. I mean, one of the things I wanted to talk about and about how you guys collaborate. And I kind of, Mitch and I, we kind of talked about this earlier, but like, it kind of plays into what Robert questioned. His question was, what shiny thing did they wave in front of Tom to distract him for 6 months while you drew Vigilante?
It's called the Green Lantern ring.
Very shiny.
It's very shiny and green. So, but what is the difference for you in, you know, drawing off of Tom's scripts or versus Tim's scripts? Like,
it's wildly different.
Which is because Tom and I have worked together. So.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
Exactly, but like, just I think so. One of the big issues, like I'm far enough behind on it where I'm freaking out, but it'll all be done by the time it comes out. But one of the big issues I have as I go through those scripts is I'm like, I know Tim's art. I'm a huge fan of Tim, so I know exactly what he might be thinking in his head when he lays out a certain panel. And then I either have to accept that or twist on it, depending on what I think works better for the story. So that's been really interesting because like Tim's an artist, so he gives a lot of like good stage direction, like not like Alan Moore, where like every little thing is planned out, but like stage direction, like, you know, this is happening in the same room as this and all that. Whereas Tom is very like open. I mean, we've all seen the Tom scripts where he just writes on Batman and then, you know, you kind of figure it out, which is interesting. As an artist is also great. So it's just been really fun finding how to do both things and enjoying the heck out of it. Like neither one is worse than the other or better than the other. It's just been fun to figure out.
So
that's a good question. Would it have been easier had I written it more Tom like with? I mean, because I know his scripts, but would it have been easier to give you like? Because
I don't know.
When he gets into like, here's this puzzle I built, right?
Yeah.
Like then he'll be pretty detailed, but like otherwise, Whereas
Also, Tom writes very like slow. Like everything kind of moves slow and cool. Whereas this book, you can't do that. This book's got to be
room. Yeah.
This book is chugging along every page. So I think having more direction of what I need to impart to the reader on that page probably helps more for this kind of book.
So, like, Claire, just kind of, I want to follow up, just clarify that. So, like, you're saying, like, the difference is Tom will give you more story design about what I'm trying to get at, whereas
Tom is all about, when he writes a script, Tom's all about what each character is, where each character is emotionally at any given moment. Right. Which, we can all make the joke of like, oh, Tom is sad, whatever. But like, I mean, I've been working with him forever. Obviously, I like it too. But you can't really do where Adrian Chase is emotionally at because he's not.
Right. Yeah.
So you kind of have to you have to get in that head of like Tim said, like it's hard to talk about without giving too much of the plot, but like it's fun playing with
the plot. I don't care.
It's fun playing with all the things around Adrian, because then you get to see it through how he sees it, and then you also get to go back to how they see him, and that's where all the comedy is. It's just Adrian not being emotionally available for anything.
Yeah, that's kind of, I mean, the way we kind of had to play this as a story, because the way you see him in the Peacemaker TV show is that he's Peacemaker's friend, and then so he's kind of a foil, right? Like he, he's always he's sort of like he's a comedic foil, and he's also sort of a plot device to some degree. But here we have to see the world the way he sees it, which we've never seen in the TV show, right? And so one of the things that we did was just sort of like you can kind of switch back and forth. Adrian is dictating, he's narrating the story, but we also show what's actually happening. Like, so we see what we show you. Mitch draws what is going on in the world, but what Adrian narrates may not necessarily be reality, because he's whatever is wrong with him, it's got it so that he completely lives in his own version of reality.
The absolute best scene I've ever drawn in comics is in issue 2 in a library. And
best scene ever.
Best scene ever. Geez. But it's exactly that. It's and even more. There's a moment where we get a thought bubble and we actually see what's in his head, and so you get to like visually see the kind of nonsense that he's thinking versus what is happening in reality.
Yeah, I kept thinking of, when I was writing Adrian, is the Scott McCloud juxtapositions and transitions. There's that sort of idea. Like Adrian is always the one where you need what's going on in the caption and what's going on in the panel to be the joke. You need both; they're interconnected. Whatever. He's that Scott McCloud juxtaposition.
Absolutely.
So like, he narrates something, and then you see it. It was interdependent, and then you go, "Wait, what?" And then that's the sort of the way that it plays as a comic, I think.
That's brilliant. I love that stuff. That's the way comics should be made, because it is the combination of the words and the pictures. It's not just pictures, not just words.
Yeah, well, and it's weird too, because so much of and Mitch can tell you this too, is like when you're working on a DC book, you don't get to do a lot of that sort of stuff because your job is to deliver sort of this information about a universe that people care about, right? Like, So a lot of times when you're working on like a DC or Marvel book, you may have like some storytelling things that you could do that would be interesting and very specific to comics, but you're like, well, the editor says I need to get this reference to this event, so I got to do that, right? So like, and that's just the way it is. It's not necessarily criticism, but I think the genius of Tom is that King was that he always gets away with using all those tools and getting across the information. And then for us, I think the cool thing about this is we can just be a vibe. Like we don't, it's not really connected to larger events. So this can be about this guy and his weird relationship with a friend who is not even there.
Right. That makes all the sense in the world, of course.
And like even the love it.
One of my favorite people under 10 years old.
Right on.
We should go to the bathroom.
That's right. That's
okay.
But like, I mean, you can see some of that in the issue 2 cover is how he sees the world.
Yeah.
And that worked out great because when we started this book, we didn't know Skybound was going to redo Transformers, and now we're like, as many Transformers references as we can get in this thing for sales. It's just going to be. The shtick on that one is that, in searching for this robot overlord called the Controller, Adrian thinks, well, of course they're hiding in cars. So he just starts blowing up cars in search of Transformers, essentially. Or GoBots or Converticons, is that what we call them?
Converticons, yeah.
GoBots, yeah, right, yeah.
Converticons, okay. So, James asked for Tim or for Mitch. How was his relationship to this story? Did he really have something to do with how DC deciding to do this book?
Yeah. I had to ask him if we could do it. So I know him from Trauma and Hack Slash. He was the guy I picked to write the screenplay in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the studio said, the Scooby-Doo guy? So we laugh about that sometimes. And but so when we decided when this was a possibility, I just DM'd James on Twitter and said, hey, we want to do Vigilante and do it kind of like the TV show and do it, however you want to do it. And he said, cool, send me some ideas. So we send him all the ideas and he approves them and gives us ideas or however, but he's a busy man, so we don't ask him to do everything. We can handle that. But it's certainly like meant to be take advantage of the fact that I think, he loves Mitch as a creator, so that's his aesthetic. And then hopefully sort of because I think James and I come from the exact same influences, like down to the Toxic Avenger, that it sounds like a James Gunn script.
Sure. That's great. I want to take advantage. We'll talk about a little bit more of it, Vigilante, but this is the first time I've had a chance to talk to Mitch in public outside of a bar.
I don't know bars.
No, not at all. I want to just talk about, talking about your aesthetic and your art. So I had a time in 2016 and 17 where this was my favorite issue of 2016. I think 2016, and then this was my favorite issue of 2017.
Excellent.
So, and it was weird. They are two of my favorite issues of things that you've done. So
well, thank you. Everyone always picks Sheriff 5.
No.
All right.
This is the one. This is the one.
I don't remember what happened in 6.
That's the one where she's.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can see by the cover.
Yeah.
It's devastating.
That book is a wild, wild ride.
But I want to talk a little bit give you a little bit of time to talk about your style is all digital, but extremely kind of, it's very unique. I mean, you can see where your influences are and stuff like that. Is your physical like workspace setup highly customized? Like, can you work on the road at all?
Oh, yeah.
I know it's
so I don't know if I can get it. No, it's not going to make it on here. I have just in my office right next to me here, I have a Mobile Studio Pro attached to a swing arm. And that's what I draw on, the 16-inch one, because I don't like working on the big screen.
So you draw on a 16-inch one.
Yep. And I can take that off of the swing arm when I travel and I bring it with. And, it's funny, like, I've brought that thing to pretty much every con I've ever done. I've probably worked at like 5 of them. But you got to bring it with, so you at least feel like you.
I understand.
Yeah.
Listen, my notebook comes with me. My laptop comes with me every time I'm going to do something. When I go, yeah, that doesn't happen. But so I think that's interesting, because I know that there are, like, I mean, just you draw in Photoshop.
Yep.
Like, your customization there has to be so tight and very, very specific.
What's weird though is, like, it's really not. Like,
okay.
I never learned all the, like, which is weird because I started in advertising graphic design, but I never learned all the, like, custom, way to, like, change brushes and have certain palettes. Like, I just have the normal CMYK RGB palette open and I figure it out. But it's
you should not be telling people this.
I only use, like, I think there's maybe 3 different brushes that I use. I kind of bounce back and forth between for whatever I need them to use. But, like, so I'm all digital with a caveat of I do a lot of texture stuff traditionally and scan it in and use that.
Oh, okay.
For Vigilante, for most of Strange Adventures, all the backgrounds were traditional. And then the characters were digital, the exact opposite of what any art dealer will tell you to do.
Just pulling hair.
Yeah, basically. But it's all, like, it all stems from just my love of that like 40s through 70s, like, ad illustration stuff. And I just feel like I've cornered in on how I can not replicate that, but also make it my own with the process that I use.
We had a question. Do you name your layers?
No. Chaos. Chaos.
When you click on it, it tells you which one, but still,
yeah,
that has to be. I can't even imagine. I have 3 layers and I name them all. Just so you know.
Oh my God.
3.
I have 87 layers and none of them are named.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like,
dear God.
Yeah. Apparently,
but see, that's a product of having to name everything when I worked in graphic design.
Yeah.
And then now that I do pencils, inks, and colors in comics, I never have to hand the art off to someone else.
Right. So
I just do it because
so
I know how it works. I don't need to inform anyone else.
That makes sense. Yeah. This is your.
I have to label everything when I'm lettering or doing any sort of design stuff, because I'll screw it up even when it's labeled.
Same. Yeah.
I want to talk about the fact that both of you guys have had a lot of experience working with the same creative partners over time. Does that help or hurt the creative process? Let me take that. How does it help and how does it hurt the creative process, do you think?
I mean, I always think of it, this is probably a crude example, but if from my work, maybe it makes sense. You can, like, make stuff. You can make a porn movie just grabbing 2 people and having them have sex on screen. Or
of course we're gonna use these analogies because you're here.
Yeah,
so
I think it's gonna be a little bit rough.
All right, that's fine. That's fine.
But or you can have them go out for dinner first and, like, get some chemistry, or you can have an actual couple and then you can be able to see it, right? So, like, think of that. Comic creators are basically in a relationship. Like, it is just a relationship between this small group of people creating this one thing, right? And if you understand each other, if you understand your shorthand, if you know each other, like how, I mean, one of my biggest frustration with comics, and it's not the fault of anybody involved with this, but how often you work on something that you don't talk to the people that you work with. Like it just gets handed off. You know, I write a script and it goes to someone and I never talk to them. Or we don't speak the same language and they don't understand anything I'm saying. So that's a huge frustration most of the time. I mean, sometimes it works just by, just sort of luck or creative verve, I guess. But the things that you make where you are on the same page, there's a reason like the great runs of comics are created by people who work together for a long time. I mean, that's why Byrne and Claremont, even though they weren't friends, could make great stuff. They understood each other. They played to each other's strengths and weaknesses. Kirby and Lee, and or like people who actually were friends, when they work together. Like it really, really helps to understand each other, to understand how someone will interpret something. And I think as a writer, the greatest thing is when I'm working with someone I've worked with long enough that I can write it to them, like at them, and I write it for their strengths and all those sort of things. Or as an artist, when someone does that for me.
I think too, like a microcosm of it is we're all like, especially artists in general, like we're all pretty sensitive bunch. And so like if someone, comes back with like, oh, I don't really like this or whatever, if you don't know that person, all of a sudden you're like, well, what the fuck's wrong with it? What? Whereas like if I don't like something Tom did or vice versa, like just text him and be like, what's up with this? And then he'll explain it. And you never feel like you're on the defense. You're just trying to make a good book.
Yeah, that's a point too. That and so many of the the things that you can leave to someone else because of the shorthand communication, but it's also the shorthand communication of, yeah, I don't get that. And then you can tell someone that and they go, okay, let me explain it. Or you know what, do what you want. Like I'll interpret, if you didn't like what I did, your version of it it'll work for me. And I think it's, having just spent a weekend on a film set and watching the way those things work, how much of comics, watching them film something, they'll go like, okay, do this take. And it'll be like, this is, from the script. And then there's my take, the actor's take. And the director's saying, here's the take. And then the editor will ultimately decide which one goes in. In comics, you get one take. So that one take has to be the decision of all the, it has to be the version of these things that combines all those aesthetics, essentially, all those viewpoints, all those ideas.
How was being on the set of Revival different from the other film that you did when you were with Mike? Did you go to that set? Did you see that at all?
Well, I mean, the hundreds of people were the difference. Revival had, hundreds of people, and Revealer had 6. It's just, drastically. Okay. That was because of COVID, actually, but also because it was an independent film. But Revival is like a full ass production. It's got, you're sitting in a church basement with 50 people, waiting for the temperature to drop enough that someone can get into a pool. It's like, it's just a drastically different thing, and it messed me up a lot.
What about you, Mitch, with the United States of Bourbon? That's a small production, I'm sure, right? And
it's
a couple of guys and.
Yep. So there's 4 cast.
Yep.
It's a documentary show or docuseries. And then usually when we film, like the first time we filmed, we had 4 like camera people in various degrees. And then this last season we only had 2. And then Dan, who's kind of the showrunner, the guy who created the whole thing, he does a lot of stuff on his own too back in New York. And so he'll fly out one, but so it's real small production, but Jesus, it's fun. I mean, it's just 4 dudes. Like the whole thing started. So it's me, Brandon Boone, who's the composer of the No Sleep podcast and a bunch of horror films. And he just did all the music for Slay the Princess, which is a video game that's been winning awards left and right. And then there's Graham Rowett, who's a voice actor on the No Sleep podcast. That's how I got to know these guys, because I'm such a fan of that. And he's also a Broadway actor. And then there's Dan, who created the show. It started out as just him. And he's a Broadway director. And me and Graham and Brandon, the No Sleep group, we've been friends online for years, and finally we're like, oh, let's like meet up and actually go do something. And so we were like, well, let's go to Kentucky. That's the thing we've all been talking about. And so we made a plan just to go to Kentucky as friends. And then Graham knows Dan and kind of brought it up to him at one point. And he's like, well, can I come and film it? And we're all like, I don't know, it seems weird. And then we met Dan, and he was one of us instantly. And so now it's just 4 dudes going to Bourbon World and having fun, and then they just film it while we do it.
That's great.
It's sloppy.
Yeah, pretty much.
No, I'm looking forward to it. When is do we have dates on that yet?
The first episode should air in January, mid-January.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, so United States of Bourbon, is that what it's called?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
One of the things, and you kind of played into this, and it's kind of one of the things I wanted to talk about just in general, is the world is a lot smaller than it used to be when we were younger people, right? You can meet these people who do this podcast and go have a trip with them to Kentucky, or you can, just, text James Gunn or whatever it is, or, have conversations with Patton Oswalt that are, about books that he's writing. And access to information. How does that change your job as writers, artists? Like the fact that the world is smaller and we have greater access to people and things and more things. I mean, obviously you don't have tons of pictures on a board as your reference anymore. How else does that work for you?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I can't.
I'm not saying it's all a good thing either. And
Yeah.
I keep always thinking of like how the version of, the early version of the internet, which you and I and all of us were all there for.
Sure.
All these things were like magic, being able to just meet people on Twitter and contact people and become friends with celebrities and do all those things was so great.
Even earlier than that, like the AOL chat room.
Yeah, or going back to Where do you think that Matt Fraction comes from, the Warren Ellis board, and all those people that came from the Bendis board, like how those things used to be such a benefit. And then I think in the last 5 years, I think it's almost 100% negative, probably. I mean, It's like the ability to contact people and that sort of stuff seems good. But like since Elon Musk bought Twitter, I think, all this stuff has just revealed how dirty and gross it is and how it can be used for evil. And
do you think that's a turning point? I think it is, but do you really think that that's a turning point? We would look back and say that was a turning point.
I mean, will we even have a future history that we'll be able to look back on? Because the winners are gonna write it, and Elon Musk won. And are you gonna know that? I don't know. I mean, I think the way that this was all so open and that the lower classes used it to communicate, that made the rich really nervous. So they bought it all and turned it into a weapon against us. I mean, and that's the reality.
That's getting clipped.
But it's weird how it kind of, in the stuff that, I like being able to connect and do these sort of things. I feel like those chances are diminishing also, right? Because they don't want, that to happen. And I think we're all sort of relying on the old internet and the connections we made there, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and then just kind of like the microcosm flip of that, like a good instance is like when I, on that last issue of Mr. Miracle, when I was filling out the audience of his last performance or whatever, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to put all the podcast people that I listen to obsessively. And I did that and sent it in. My editor is like, you can't just do this. Like, what? And I was like, okay, well, give me a day. And I just went on email and went on Instagram and messaged all of them they all got back to me, approved it, and then like that has led to other opportunities and friendships. And
Wait, so they said you couldn't do that.
well, DC was like, you can't use a likeness of.
Yeah, they're terrified of that stuff.
Have they not seen
What?
Superman versus Muhammad Ali?
Different days, man. Different days. Like, Sammy Davis Jr. wasn't going to sue for that shit.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, apparently I got to sue because I've been in comics.
Yeah.
I have been drawn in.
I mean, the way that law has changed and all these sort of things, again, to protect the elites, that's that system. They can just say, you benefited from my appearance, and then you've got to pay them some percentage. And, so everybody gets real nervous. Like, the way it used to be, you could just sneak shit in to comics is kind of, you can still do it in image books because, you're just like, come get me, motherfucker. But like Marvel, DC they're so nervous about everything. And with good reason, I doubt you could have got away with what you did in Mr. Miracle. Now, probably they'd just be like, it's not worth it. It's like,
well, I pretty much begged them, like, because they wanted me to redraw it, and I was like, just give me a day, I can get every signature, and if not, I'll delete whoever doesn't. And everyone thankfully got back right away,
which is amazing, also.
Yeah.
And it to your clout and the sort of also the interconnectedness of that old, because that is one of the weird things you learn about drawing comics, which shouldn't seem to be on the level of like comedians or like people, podcasters and stuff, but they're all nerds too, and they love creative stuff. And so
I mean, that's why it happened, is because more than half, 3/4 of those people I drew are like complete comic nerds to begin with.
Yeah, and that's always the weird thing. I think Mitch and I have talked about this before of drinks, but you're like, it has to be that like a quarter of our readers are already like famous people and movie execs. like
It can't be that many because there's not that many. Like there isn't, but it feels that way, right?
I mean, if you go to like Meltdown or Midtown Comics, it's like half the people in there are other creatives, right? And if because it's New York and LA, like a lot of those people are famous, right? Like, I mean, if you go into Midtown at any time of the day, you have a chance of bumping into like SNL cast and right. It's just like it's been that way, I think, for a long time, but it's more pronounced now because you can find out, just as Mitch did, that people that are famous read your book. Like I used to have it so easy for going into Hollywood meetings for Hack Slash stuff because all the horror guys read it, right?
Sure.
So it was an easy, because we have the same interests. We all grew up on the same stuff, and
So I would like to talk about that too, because Mitch, was your first comics work Starborn?
Yes. Yep.
So, and I read that and I loved it.
really right away.
I love that book.
It was so well. I mean, I colored the whole thing.
He colored Kari.
And Scalera, and
I have that comic. I bought that whole line of books. That was Boom, right?
yeah.
It was Boom.
The Stan Lee
we were talking about it with Chip Mosher not too long ago on the show. So, what you say you worked in digital marketing and stuff like that. So how did you always want to be doing comics? How did that happen for you?
Yeah, I mean, comics was always the dream, but I also read a lot of Wizard magazine and had a good enough head on my shoulders to know how hard it was to get into comics. So I was like, well, I definitely need to get out of the house and start my life. So I'll go to school for graphic design. And so then I got, went to school for graphic design, got a job in graphic design. And we, after 5 years at the graphic design place, we lost the General Mills account, which is what I was working on. And they just let us all go. And so I was like, all right, well, I can either apply for more of this, which I'm lukewarm on, or I can give that comics thing a shot. I mean, I was collecting sweet Obama unemployment. So I'll do that. And so I gave it a shot, and I don't know if you're familiar. There was this period on Twitter when Twitter was good, where a bunch of us who were just fans, there's maybe one or two people who were getting like actual work. We're like, oh, let's do like pick a character, and then we'll all draw that character a week. And so it became Comic Twort, which is the worst name ever, the Twitter art. And it was this blog where each week we would pick a different character and we would all draw them and post it. And like now you look back and the people in that group were like me, Doc Shaner, Chris Somney, Gabe Hardman, Francesco Francavilla, Tom Fowler, Mike Hawthorne, like all these guys who are like big dudes now in the industry. And so Bryce Carlson
on Comic Twart. I just remember that.
That's right.
/Comic Twart.
Yeah. And then Bryce Carlson found me on there and was like, hey, do you want to color Starborn? Because he liked what I was doing with colors, at least. And so that's how I got that gig. But what's funny about it too is that I got that gig, but then he's like, well, the first thing we need you to do is, can you do a variant cover for it? I was like, sure. And so I did a variant cover for issue 1, and then found out after I had done it, or after it had come out, and I was like, how come I didn't get a copy of my cover? And he's like, well, every cover, we only printed like, it was like a 1 in 500, and every single one was signed by Stan Lee. And then eventually they sent me one later on, but like my very first work for hire gig was a comic signed by Stan Lee.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, wait ahead of line, Mitch.
Jeez. So then after that, you was Activity your first interior stuff then?
I know Doctor Who.
Oh, the Doctor Who book. Yeah,
Yep.
right.
Yeah. I did an annual story with Matthew Dow Smith,
who is awesome and has been on the show, and we love.
And then I did the next year's annual. I can't remember who wrote that.
So how did you get hooked up?
I don't remember
Mr. King.
What's that?
How'd you get hooked up with Mr. King, and then the rest is history?
Oh, that was me finishing up Punisher and Marvel not having any idea what to do with me because they, completely pigeonholed me as the military guy, which, I mean, rightfully so at the time. But Jamie Rich, who just gotten the job as the, one of the head people at Vertigo, called me up one day and was like, hey, I have some pitches I could pitch you. And one of them was Sheriff, and it sounded right up my alley. And then, I mean, that's how I met Tom. That's how it all started.
That's fantastic. Talking about like that, like, so Tim, you did the Archie book with Mike, right? How is it coming back and working with Mike after so long, like doing that Archie book?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the perfect we've done a previous story, Archie story. We did a Archie slasher story right before that. But I don't know, it's just, it's, if I know Mike is coming in and do something, I just, like, I sort of relax and just, my scripts get more fluid, and like I just know he knows. I mean, that's the thing, is like I know Mike has seen that terrible B horror movie that I'm referencing, right? Like I know that. Not only has he seen it, he's probably already drawn a picture of it and posted a review on his, whatever. So, I think we can come into something with sort of the same aesthetic and references. I don't have to explain myself. So my scripts go faster if I work with Norton, or if I work with, generally speaking, like if I work with someone I know really well, like Jim Terry, I just can write a much looser thing, or I can make references that I don't have to provide reference for. Like I can just say, here's this, he makes a face and it looks like Ash from when he gets his face stretched out in Army of Darkness. So like, oh, I know that reference.
Right.
Yeah. So and again, it's just that sort of thing. Is that familiarity? I guess is just a pleasure of working in creative stuff.
We have a question. I kind of want to get into this. The question is from my wife Sherry. Says, "What's the best part about going to conventions?" And I kind of want to get into this, but I want to preference this just a little bit. So we were at GalaxyCon Columbus this past weekend. hung out with Aaron Campbell, who says hi to both of you.
Awesome.
Obviously, he probably doesn't need me to say that.
Yes.
What's that?
A good friend of both of us. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. We talked about both of you, so there you go. But one of the things that I find interesting about conventions, and when I got back into comics and started going to conventions, and the access that a fan has to a creator is something that, growing up as a kid, when comics were just this thing that you went to the store and you got, and we didn't have an internet. Like the fact that I've had lunch, I've had lunch and dinner with Marv Wolfman is something I could never tell 14-year-old me and actually believe.
You gotta have breakfast with Marv. Right?
What's that?
You have breakfast with Marv now.
It's the only thing left, So the experience that you have with fans, how do you experience that for fans that come to you and for you as fans of creators who you run into?
I'm still just as nervous as I ever was as a kid when I meet new people, especially, if I'm a huge fan of their work. But I also remember being a kid and going to like San Diego and stuff, and just like exactly like you're saying, how mind-blowing it was. So I try to give that, as much as I can to everyone who comes in through the line, because like I spent all this work on this thing, and then they want to come up and like tell me that they appreciated it. Like, as an artist, there's really nothing better. I mean, to actually know someone read the thing that you slaved over is always really cool.
Yeah, I feel like, and even more so now that there's so much competition for people's attention, that someone gave their attention to you out of all the things they could have given their attention to. I mean, I think you appreciate those people more than you ever have. Like, New York Comic Con was only like a month ago, and I've been a few since then, and just the fact that I can go to Chattanooga or New York or I don't even remember where I've been in a lot of places, Detroit. The people care about this thing that you made is, you just cherish that. I think Mitch and I are from the generation of like really appreciating that, whereas I think there's a generation before us, maybe 2 generations before us, where they can be sort of like, oh, the fans, and none of us ever fucking say that. We're just like, thank you. I mean, like the guys who had millions of readers without having to really do anything because of the way the industry was set up at that time. Like, maybe they're jaded, but like none of us are ever. But on the other hand, I think the thing about working in entertainment and then having fans and then like going into green rooms and seeing William Shatner and Alice Cooper and whatever is like, I guess I've been doing this for so long, like that I also don't sort of turn celebrity or being famous into something it isn't. Like, it doesn't mean you're, it just means you were on a set and they shot you and you were on a TV screen. Like, it doesn't mean anything. And so, but like, there is those performances or stories that touch you in some way, and that is valuable. And I, certainly like, I think I've met everybody in the nerd space that is famous in some way or another. I've been on a shuttle to an airport with everybody at some point or another, and they're out of all those people, like every once in a while, just like, yeah, when I was a kid, I was having a hard time, and I saw that episode of Thundercats where Lionel had the trial, and you really performance, and man, but that's great. I mean, that little things mean something, and that's okay. Life's hard, and people get through stuff, Like this weekend, they drive me out to the set, and it's cold as shit, and it's fucking dark as hell, and we're in the middle of the country, and they're like, hey, you got to meet Lenore. And Lenore comes up, and she is in the Revival TV show, and she plays Rogue in the X-Men '97 cartoon. So she was in the original, and she's in the new one. She comes up, and she's like, "Hey, Sugar!" It's like, "Oh my god, you're fucking Rogue!" And I was like, "Wait, I'm writing a Rogue miniseries right now, and I hear your voice when I do this." It's like, that's the shit right there, right? Like, that's stuff, We were in the middle of the woods. No, I'm not joking. Off a highway in New Brunswick, St. John, Canada, And that meant something to me. Like, that was a little moment, right? Like, oh shit, I was a kid in central Wisconsin watching this and being like, man, this rogue is even hotter than the one in the comic.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, that it's an interesting thing. Like, again, I'm in this a weird place where I'm, you know, I have access to that as well. You know, in the space that I'm in this weekend, you know, there was so many, you know, people that I ran into or saw and had conversations. I mean, I'd add that this weekend because so Daphne Rubin Vega was there, and she's one of the voice actresses in Has Been Hotel, I think, which is some show that I haven't seen yet. But she's the original Mimi in Rent, and I am a Rent head from way back, so I like kind of had to sneak in and just say, you know, thanks for that. Like, I really I listened to your voice a million times, and I've seen that show, and it meant so much to me. And you know, she touched my hand. She's like, "Oh, thank you so much." And I'm like, "Oh."
What's funny about, like, you know, movie, TV celebrities versus, you know, comic creators, if you want to say celebrities, which is a stretch. But like, what's weird about, like, I want someone to come up to me and like tell me how much they loved my most famous work. Like, yes, oh, thank you, that's awesome. Whereas a celebrity, if you go up and you say the most obscure thing, they'll be like, "Oh my God, you're my favorite."
Yeah, no.
So true.
Why is that?
I don't know.
Well, I think it's because there's a toil associated with the acting, you know, like, whereas like they acting is in it for the craft, I think, so much. Obviously they're trying to be famous, but they did theater, they did like all this sort of stuff, and you know, they know how many people saw some of that shit, right? they know it was 300 people at a theater in, you know, in Boise, Idaho or whatever, and you know, so that someone saw it is like, oh wow, like I did something and it mattered, you know. It's like, I get it, you know.
I mean, and I don't mean to put this down, but like, Tim, Hackslash is part of the reason why you got to where you were, but there are plenty of people who are fans of your work who never read Hackslash at this point, who didn't come from that, right? There are. I can see there's an entire generation of people who don't know Hackslash.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, here's the weird thing about, well, maybe, but I feel like I have a flip on that where like there's a very small amount of people who only know me from DC shit or something, right? I'm not like some of the other people, I guess, because my DC stuff is wherever it is. I'm not, you know, Tom Taylor or something, but wherever it is, like, there's not that many people, and there are some, but I mean, like my college kids will come into my class and they'll be like, "You're the guy who did Nightwing and Hackslash," like that, for whatever reason.
Okay.
Like, you know, like it's associated. Even if you didn't read it, you at least know about it because it's controversial or whatever. But I think it's
Hot chicks.
yeah. I mean, and it's memeable, or I feel like it's the most known book that people don't buy. Right? It's like everybody knows what it is. They don't buy it at the level of what they know it to be. You know, maybe they picked up a trade of it. But it's different. I think it's partially I've been doing this so much longer than even my peers. You know, like, I mean, Mitch and I are about the same age, but I've got a few years on Mitch, and Tom and I are about the same age, and I've got years on Tom too. Just because I think I'm always going to be the sort of indie guy. Like, yes, I can work on X-Men now, and I can work on, you know, He-Man and Godzilla and everything else, but I'll always be that indie guy, probably, you know, which I think is okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
I'm not saying it's not okay. I'm not, and I think it is. I'm just saying that, and I'm going to disagree with you just a little bit. I think that, I guess that's the case. But you are an indie guy, but you shouldn't think of yourself that way. You should think of yourself as a popular creator, because you are.
Well, but a survey, perhaps. How many people do you think on the listening to the show right now are like, he's the Nightwing guy? Versus
a lot more people, I think, than you would think, because because of the company, though.
Sure, right. Yeah, I mean, maybe I just want to be known as the hack slash guy, so I'm just maybe that.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Right? Like, I'd rather. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting point. I mean, it's everybody's got.
I mean, like when you were on, okay, so when you were on, Grayson, I think it was Grayson. I'm like, oh, it's the hack slash guy,
Right?
you know, but that's me. You know, I'm older than both of you, and you know, I was reading all that, so
I think hack slash transcends a little bit though, because it's like
does.
A little, like just
Yeah.
enough that it. Yeah, like I think it's also because we came out in an era where, you know, Invincible was coming out, Walking Dead, and like also this sort of era. It's weird too because I think of that sometimes. Comics goes in this sort of like pulses of creator-owned work, where like, you know, all of a
We're in
sudden,
one of them right now,
yeah, I think that we're in the beginning of one right now
I
because
think so.
we kind of, you know,
Which
there's
is crazy considering how big it is, and I think you're right. We are in the beginning of it.
yeah, because I think there was this sort of era of like, I mean, obviously there's the original Image guys, obviously that's the big one, but then there's the second one, which is, you know, is
The
Walking
Kirkman
Dead,
Bendis thing.
yeah, and Bendis, and then I'm on the tail end of that one, and then there's a sort of retraction, and then there's another one which is like East of West, and you know, sex criminals and revivals. There was rivals in that one, and then it's a retraction. It's like you see these sort of, and partially I think it's like it's not the quality of the work or anything.
No, it's money.
It's money, and it's also sort of you know, the zeitgeist of the time, you know, and sort of being sick of things like, oh fuck, man, I've read every superhero plot that exists. I'm gonna go check out some other stuff, you know. And Sheriff, you know, is in the last sort of that pulse that when Vertigo books could matter, right? Like it's just sort of these things that happen, and then everybody retracts and goes, I just want my comfortable capes, you know, for a while.
Mhm.
You know, so
My capes and my laser beams.
yeah, yeah, I think we're kind of coming back up to that new interest in creator own work, and you know, it's a bummer. I think on the side of what you're talking about is like there's so much good shit. Maybe 2 years ago when no one was reading stuff, there's so much cool stuff, you know. But
So much.
yeah, you just, and there's always a risk you take. I think as a comic creator, like you might just debut to crickets, you know.
Yeah.
It's
I
always
mean,
a possibility.
it pisses me off because I read it, you know, and there's so many things that are just that blow my mind. I have this weird thing. Are you familiar with the Jimmy V speech? So Jim Valvano was a coach, you know, basketball coach and
This is
commentator.
why we're unfamiliar, yeah.
What's that?
This is why I'm unfamiliar with sports. I'm like, I don't know.
Right.
If
That's
I was like Jimmy Valentino, yes.
Jim Valvano. So
Yeah.
he had cancer, and it was on SB's like award show, and he said he was dying, like he's filled with cancer, and he's up there in the speech, and he says there's 3 things you need to do every day. One is think, one is laugh, and one is be moved to tears. And comics make me cry more than I could have imagined, and I love every moment of it. And there's so many things, so many great things in comics. Both of you have moved me to tears with things you've written and drawn, and I love it. And I think I think that's one of the things that people don't understand about the medium, and how much it can touch your emotions. When you're making something that do you think this is going to hit people?
I mean, I'll tell you this. I think about this every fucking day because I have to teach kids, and one of the things I always tell them is, what, you know, I ask them, what is your job when you make something, you know, and it's not to get paid, and it's not any of the, it's not to be famous, it's not any of those things. It's to make someone feel something, right? That's the job. What's up, Bubba? Your skin hurts? Your whole skin? Oh, that's a problem. You want to just sit right here? I'll put you just chill out a little bit.
Does she want to say hi?
Yeah, come on, Valentina. Her skin hurts. You want to say hi? You have joy. We'll put some lotion on you. Okay, Bubba. Okay.
Hi,
Well,
V.
say hey. Here's Mitch. You know Mitch. He gave you the awesome Wonder Woman piece. There
Hi.
you go. You know Bob. You met Bob, right?
We had dinner together.
Yeah. Hey, you want to sit and relax for a moment? But okay, so job, make someone feel something, right? And the reason comics can be a curse and a benefit is that the relationship between the creator and the reader is that I only give you what's in the panels, and you have to put in what's in the gut. So I've now created something that you are a contributor to, right? It is a relationship. We have made something together. And so that I can use to make you feel something. I can make you feel strong things because I touched something that you put into it, right? And on the downside of it is I can make something that you think that you own because you were part of it, and you can get mad, right? So
Sure.
so that's the sort of way I think about it, how it has to be. And I think is the longer I do this, the less I go have to come up with a great high concept, and the more I go, I have to come up with something true, like something that everybody we all, and that's fucking hard to do. But every once in a while, you're like, we all have some experience, like that thing where when you're a kid and there's somebody you were really romantically attracted to, and then you see them with someone else and they do this sort of thing that is sort of intimate and small and personal, and it guts you. We all have that. We've all had it, right? So
No, you don't even if you've never had that experience, just by what you said, right?
yeah,
You can experience that, and everybody knows that. And there's those things that are in each panel. Certainly, not every page. There's something there. There's something that I can gather that that the writer was thinking to try and move something, to try and tell something, or the artist added something that just that
something
was
true. That's the job.
Yeah.
Like true with a capital T, something true. That's the job, like to find something that we all know and we all feel, and when we see someone feel it, we connect. And it can be little stuff. It's like things that are funny and things that are heartbreaking and things that are painful and things that are terrifying. But if we share it, that's more important than anything else that we can do, right? Is remind people that we all feel these things.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll go back to you, Mitch, and you can give this. For example, in this book, the last panel of this book, when she says "stay," fucking died.
Yeah. There's a few moments in this book that are and to a degree, I think, especially in the later issues, after Jacob is born, I think at that point we knew, because it was a 12-issue series, like we kind of knew our fans and everything and what they really grabbed onto. And so there was moments doing those last 6 issues where I was like, oh, this is going to kill everyone. Like, or this is going to piss people off. This is going to make them cry, blah, blah, blah. Just because you knew how invested and what they were invested in.
So is that something you normally, as part of your process, you're like, oh, I know I need to do something here because it fits with what's going on in the story. I need to bring it up to hit that emotional piece on my side.
I mean, for me, like the entire job for me is storytelling. I don't do originals, so I'm not worried about making a big cool splash that I can sell. I'm just there to tell the story in the best and easiest way possible. What's that?
I said, be nice to Clay.
Oh. But so like it's especially working with Tom too. You've got to hit those emotional beats, and the way Tom writes, they're usually pretty intense emotional beats.
No, that's cool. Just to search, Robert is going to say that you're linked to Hackslash for him, so just follow back on that.
There you go. See, I told you.
Yep. All right. Well, I was wrong. So
having been to a lot of conventions, I can tell you that is weirdly true. But it also might be, just think about this on their side, and we're talking about making people feel stuff. It's like the thing that you sort of always run up against in comics is that nostalgia is one of the biggest feelings you can have, right? And
sure,
so,
and we're in a big boom for that right now.
Yeah, because things used to be better,
Is that why all my favorite cartoons are now comic books?
Yes.
Right this moment?
Yes. Having rode the wave on a nostalgia thing once, whenever some right-wing politician takes over and ruins the economy. We get lots of nostalgia comics.
Sure.
Totally true. But I think that that is one of the tougher things to sort of move beyond, and with creating your own stuff, is that you're like, well, I can't get you with something that you've already sort of written into your head is very important to you. Which, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, Jesus. I mean, behind me, how much, I don't know, got Scud the Disposable Assassin and things that I'm nostalgic for too. Like, so I get it, But I think if you can do something nostalgic and also elicit a new emotion,
yeah,
then that's how you become Mitch and Tom, right? Like you took, Mr. Miracle is a fun character, but it's not a character with a lot of emotional. I don't want to say veritas. Let's say it doesn't have a lot of deep emotional connection to it, and they added that to it, and that makes people. That's how you get people, right? That's and I think that's
Adam Strange too.
Grace Works or something like that. It's like,
oh, we kind of did the opposite with Adam Strange.
Yes,
turned him into a real piece of shit.
I understand that, but he was very vanilla.
Yeah. I mean, I think about that sometimes too, because one of the cheats is obviously to adult up a kid's story, right? Like, it's a cheat. Like you're taking something that wasn't meant to be complicated or deep, and it's just supposed to be escapist or whatever, and that's Dark Knight Returns, so that's a whole other conversation. But
yeah,
there's that too. I mean, so it's hard to sort of come into something with hey, here's some new characters, a new idea. I want you to feel something about it. Like that stuff. And there you go. Ask for Mitch on a flash book.
I would crush it on a flash book.
Well, we know. I don't know. Your son might have something to say about that.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to talk a little bit about what you got going on, Tim. I'm sorry Mike's not here because I think he might have something to say about this. What is Godzilla versus Chicago?
So IDW is doing a series of one shots called Godzilla versus America, and the idea is that each city will have creators from that town. So when they reached out to me about it, they're like, "We want to do Chicago, and you're the most Chicago guy we know." So, and then Ryan Brown is the other creator on it. He lives right down the street from my house. So we're just doing like the most Chicago thing we can think of with Godzilla. It's kind of
that's awesome.
That's awesome.
So mine is Godzilla attacks the L.
Of course,
it's a whole. That's a very distinctly Chicago thing. But I loved it. I don't think I never get to do stuff where I just talk about how I like this place so much, and this was that opportunity. So it was really fun. And I love Godzilla, so it works something.
Yeah. Well, so will Mitch be doing Godzilla versus Phoenix?
I already blew up Phoenix in Strange Adventures, so
I feel like
I don't think they're going to want you back.
I actually had, when I was doing the Godzilla versus Chicago, I kind of felt bad about it because I drew it too. I don't normally get to draw stuff very often, but I drew the 10 pages of that story, and I was like stomping on downtown and feeling really weird about it. Like I was like, I thought the story's about how I like Chicago. Hear me just fucking it up. So yeah.
And then you got this coming, the third volume of Money Shot.
Fifth volume.
Well, the third arc, right? Third different name, right? We had the first one when we had the
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
fifth arc, but fifth
yes.
volume, but the third different name, right? So this is what, Big Bangs?
Yeah, Big Bang. The Big Bang. Yeah.
The Big Bang. Okay. So, and you and I've talked about this a little bit, but how did you come about with this one?
So the first three arcs, I guess, or whatever, how we did this first series was with the comedian Sarah Beatty. And I felt like working with comedians is kind of a shtick for the book because it's got to be funny and dirty.
Yeah.
And Sarah brought so much to it.
I mean, I do want to let you know that this is episode 69 of the SquadCast that you guys are on.
Oh, perfect. See, it was all the money.
It was all planned.
Yeah. But so we did those, and then there was an arc that I wrote completely by myself, which was also contained the guest star Cherry Pop Tart from the Cherry comics. So we just have always done weird shit with this book because that is why not? Fuck it.
Sure.
But I was at San Diego Comic-Con and having dinner with Patton Oswalt and Jordan Bloom and the other people I work with on Minor Threats. And Pat and I were just chatting, and I said, "Yeah, man, we should do something else together." And he was like, "Oh yeah, we can come up with something new." I was like, and I just joked. I said, "Or I'll make you do Money Shot." And he goes, "Okay, great. That's what I'm gonna do." And I thought he was joking. And he emailed me. He's like, "Okay, when do you want to talk about this?" So he was reading the book and that weird comics comedians thing.
Right.
But so yeah, we just came up with a plot together. It has lots of structure by me and lots of hilarious idea by Patton, and we put it together, and then we made a Money Shot series. Strangely enough, and it's drawn by our new artist Darth Graham with returning colors Michael Russell, and it's the most. I mean, the book has always been kind of, I don't know, like satirical and kind of angry, and this one is so angry, but also hilarious. So yeah, it's a lot of satirical ideas going on.
That's great. So do we have, I don't know if we have a date yet on Vigilante. Is that right?
Yeah, February, right? Is it February next?
I mean, the last time I heard something, they said January, but
Oh yeah,
my guess is February.
I'm really tired.
Okay, I might have to wrap it up soon here.
I think we're almost there. We're almost there. Okay, well,
Get out of here, you weirdo.
he's allowed to come on too if he wants.
Want to come over and say hi?
the Goofies in it.
Want to come say hi?
Hi.
You got to get in front of the camera.
Oh.
Hi. This is kids' night on the show. Thank you.
Yeah, right. See? You can't help it with us.
That's true.
Mitch,
Listen, I it's great too because I remember when both of your kids were born. As that process was going on, that's one of the cool things to see them growing up and being part of this, and it's awesome.
and
You guys do a great job as creators and fathers. So I want to.
Kids are wild.
It's a wild,
Wait
experience.
till they get older. They only get more expensive. I'll tell you that much. So mine are all grown. So
Yes, I think the last time we talked to Katie, she said January, March.
February.
Okay.
March. I think it says
it's March, like because it's not solicited yet, so it's not on the things. So
Sure.
Yeah.
but
March,
yeah, so March sounds great.
Works for me.
DCUniversefandom.com.
I know they wanted it to come out when like press was starting for season 2 of Peacemaker.
Yeah. So I
That's
think
great.
it's like late February, early March. Yeah.
Terrific. All right, guys, this has been great. I know you guys have fatherly responsibilities, and I'm gonna let you go. And I appreciate you guys for coming.
Go get
early.
this.
Whoa.
What is that?
Yeah, this is Mr. Miracle Absolute.
Absolute.
Yeah.
Everything's
January
absolute these
28th.
days. There's a lot. DC should invest in vodka companies or something like that.
Look at that beautiful. That is awesome, man.
That is awesome. I love
It's
that.
really designed for that slipcase, but seeing it in real life is really something.
I love that the
I was pretty
slipcase
impressed.
is actually the broke up 9 panels, which is nice.
Yeah.
That's
Deep
nice.
cuts there. All kinds of deep cuts going on sometimes. Beautiful.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well,
All right.
thank you guys for being here. We're
Thank
very
you, Bob.
excited about Vigilante. We will have you both back. You're both welcome at any time. And I'll catch up with you guys on the road somewhere soon.
Sounds
Thanks,
good.
Bob. Always a pleasure to see you, Mitch.
Yeah, good to see you, Tim.
All right, Dean says hi. He's enjoying it. He's been watching
Hi, Dean.
Ron,
Oh,
while we're talking. I'll talk to you guys later.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Later, guys.
All right, folks. I really appreciate you being here tonight. It was hard for me a little bit. Well, more challenging than normal. Going solo. We will be back though. In just 2 days. We're gonna be back. We have a bunch of stuff before we wrap up the season. This year we have been doing a bunch of shows on Tuesday nights. Tuesday night is our night. It's the night to look for us here, and we will be here for you. But this year we have Christmas Eve on a Tuesday night and New Year's Eve on Tuesday night, so we're not going to do shows that night. We might have worked something else out in the middle. Maybe do a Monday show here and there. But we have shows coming up this Thursday in 2 days. We have a show next Tuesday. We have a show next Thursday. It's already booked in. So then after that, I haven't quite figured it out, but I will have it done within the next week. Yeah. So I just want to on Thursday, 2 days from now, we're going to have Shelly Bond on the show. It is her first time on the SquadCast Live. I've interviewed her a bunch of times. She's a very good friend of mine. We're going to talk about her latest book, which is currently being kickstarted, and it is the third in the trilogy of her, autobiographical graphic novels, and we're looking forward to that. We're going to talk about that. She said to me she might have some special announcements available, so do come back and check that out. Same bat time, same bat channel. You know where to find us. If you haven't subscribed or liked or followed us, please do that so that you'll get notified when we come back. Again, thank you everybody for being here tonight and for all your comments and participating, and share this out if you want. Let people see the great conversation we had with Mitch and Tim. It was fantastic. I can't thank you enough, and we'll see you later.
This has been a production of the Pop Culture Squad Network. PopCultureSquad.com. How do you nerd?